Welcome to the Event Innovator Show, where we explore the ideas and strategies that are transforming events. Get ready to unlock the secrets to creating extraordinary experiences. And now, here's your host.
I'm super excited to be here today with
Mershon.
Quinn Conyers. She is a professional speaker, a professional MC, probably one of the most passionate people that I know about creating experiences from the stage, both as a speaker and as an MC. And she loves to train people in the business of MCing. But today, we're going to talk about the art and craft of being a great MC and why events need it. So welcome to the show, Quinn.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you for the invitation.
Yes, I have been looking forward to this conversation for quite a while. We had to reschedule it at least once or twice. And so I saw you in action during a workshop that you did. And I said, okay, this woman understands what it means to be a great MC. So I want to start with, let's start talking about the MC themselves and those who maybe want to be MCs. What are some of the critical skills that a great MC has that want to be MCs need to develop?
You know, there's a laundry list. And if you ever do see a great MC and it looks flawless, it's probably because they have put time and attention into their craft. And I think it's one of those things that it looks effortless. It doesn't look like it takes a lot of energy and effort until you're in the situation. So one of the things, or several things that I think that if people are looking to either break into the MC space or they want to be more intentional, because a lot of MCs that I run across, they're doing it haphazardly. It's kind of like if somebody asked them and now they're ready to get serious. Maybe they want to be a professional, but they want to get more intentional. Is number one, treat it like a business, right? Especially if you want to go that way. Treat it like a business, have processes set up. So if somebody inquires about your MC services, you're not immediately kind of jumping on the phone and saying, okay, I can do this. So I always suggest that if you are serious about it and you want to monetize this, treat it like a business. Secondly, I think one of the things that you have to understand is it just very much is a different set of speaking. I always say that speaking and emceeing are family, but they're not twins, right? So they can be brother and sister, they can be husband and wife, but it's not two sides of it. So one of the things I always suggest is making sure that you have the right energy for this, because great MCs have to be on sometimes for all day or multiple days, whether if you are a traditional speaker or a workshop presenter, you might be speaking, coaching, talking for 45 to 60 minutes, where there's a lot of up and down. And sometimes we don't realize the toll that it takes on our energy. So asking yourself, do I have the energy to serve an audience multiple times within an event, experience, a conference or convention? And lastly, I would ask yourself, if you want to get into this or how do I prepare, is to really understand that it is such a combination of different speaking skill sets. It is executive presence. It is nonverbal communication. It is being quick on your feet. There's so many different, it's a little bit of improv. I say when you're an MC, you're not just a speaker, but you're almost a performer, right? So there's so many different soft and hard skills that are combined to make this role super magical. So just being a great storyteller is not sufficient enough. Being great with introductions isn't sufficient enough. There are so many different moving parts that make a great MC, and to be mindful of that and to be aware allows you to really select, is this the right speaking role for myself?
I love that you said that MCs and speakers are in the same family, but not necessarily in the same person, because I see that. I've tried to put speakers into an MC role and they haven't necessarily done well. Some of it's because they didn't do the preparation, but some of it is because of what you've just described. They don't have those skills. Can you go a little bit deeper into the difference between the skills that differentiate them? Because there's obviously a lot of common skills. And that's why you called them family. But you know, what makes a great MC that a speaker doesn't necessarily have that you haven't already talked about?
I would say, MC, but also really understand what is an MC. An MC is an individual, a person who moves the crowd, right? Like, and that right there is something. So it's easy that if a crowd is very, let's say, low energy and moving the audience up a notch or up, 2 or 4 notches, right? If the energy of the crowd is a 3 and you're naturally an 8, great. But what if the energy is a 10 and now we have a serious speaker who's coming? You have to be able to shift the atmosphere. heavier. So it is a high level of emotional intelligence that you have to be aware of. I'll give you an example. Usually when I come on stage, I have my walk-on music. It is an indicator that I'm coming on, but it is also a time where I psychologically prepare my audience to receive that a transition is about to happen. So a lot of times when I work with other vendors, they're like, oh my gosh, I can do a different theme song every single time you walk on stage. I'm like, no, the same one, because now they have associated that song with me. However, if I'm doing a conference that is more heavy and emotional, my theme song is high energy, could be inappropriate. So I might have to go and say, do not play that song when I come on, because it's going to cut into the mindset and emotion. It's just not appropriate. So I always tell people, like, there is a high level of emotional intelligence. Not only are you managing the stage, you are managing sponsors, you are managing speakers, you're managing CEOs who are definitely afraid of public speaking and are not even sure why they're even speaking at their own conference. So you have to deal with that as well as last minute changes. So there is a versatility as well as being vibrant. There is a space where you have to be calm, even if it's super chaotic in the background, if the lights go out, if the music won't play, if your speaker went to the wrong airport, you know what I mean? You're managing all of that. So I say that the biggest difference, I believe, between like a speaker and an MC is the emotional intelligence that is required to do this role. I'm so good at this point that I can look at a script or run a show and I can see in the timeline where we're going to need tissues based on the content. So that's just experience, but also just understanding what type of conference we are, what kind of content this is, what kind of crowd this is. You don't want to have 500 tears and everybody's snotting and wiping their hand on the back of their shirt because they weren't prepared, but I can see that. So emotional intelligence, being quick on your feet, really, really doing well when things don't go according to plan, that can really throw some people off. If I have my 60 minutes and I know what I'm going to say and I've delivered this keynote 100 million times, then I'm good with that. But if that's not the same type of speaking skill set you need. I mean, flexibility, adaptability, filling time, getting something back on time is all a part of that role that is very different from your traditional speaking and coaching or training speaker's role.
One of the things I've noticed that a professional MC has in their bag of tricks that most other MCs don't is the ability to respond to chaos. So I'll give you a couple of examples. Technology breaks down, video's not working. You don't know how long you're going to have that you need to fill. It could be a minute. It could be 5. One case we had, it took 7 minutes, which feels like an eternity when you're waiting to introduce a keynote speaker that should have been up there at second one. You've got to have those skills to know how to adjust when, the sound goes out, the technology is not working, there's a fire alarm. Like you've probably seen 1,000 things. And I can tell just by the stories you just told that you've probably experienced some of those things where the speaker's stuck at the airport or whatever. Talk a little bit more about that, because those are not things that you go to school to learn.
No, you don't. And experience and immersive education is the best way. Like, that's why, how we connected. That's why I decided to do my masterclass MC4 because a lot of what you're learning is on the job training. And there's not a lot of people teaching this. There's not a lot of courses or coaching. There's no degree in MC education, right? So you're learning. So I think part of it is, you being very comfortable and confident if things go left or right. And that is very uncomfortable for a lot of different people. So I think that part of this is understanding, like, part of your job, is probably 70% scripted and 30% anything can happen. And most people are not comfortable with the anything that can happen. But that is where people like me thrive, because I understand that. So there is a different level of preparation, not even just on what you're going to say, just knowing the community, what types of things can I do if time is short, or if I have to fill in. When you said 7 minutes, I'm like, oh my gosh, 7 minutes, that's easy. I've had to fill in for 45 minutes. I remember having a conversation with someone. It was in COVID and they were supposed to speak at this conference. It was a 3-day event. They had 45 minutes. Their CEO caught COVID, couldn't come. They send their CFO, and the CFO looks at me straight face, Phil, and he's like, I'm not even sure why they sent me. I'm not even a speaker. I'm going to play this 5-minute video and I'm sitting down. And I'm like, excuse me, what? He's like, I'm not a speaker. I don't even know why I'm here. So I'm panicked because I have 40 minutes I need to fill on a topic that's not my topic. And we have a person that is going to, and mind you, they gave me like, hey, the person that was supposed to come, they're not coming anymore. This is a new person, no bio, no nothing. I'm just like, okay, I'm going to make this happen. So part of this space as well is being very comfortable and confident with making less than a millisecond of decisions. So what I decided to do was I could tell that he was very nervous. I said, listen, we got 40 minutes to fill. I took my octave down from a usually 9 or 10, and I had to bring it down to meet him where we were at. The emotional intelligence kicked in. There's no emotional intelligence button on my body that I had to make it activate. I just know because I've been in this situation. So I said to him, I said, listen, we have an audience who are dying to hear from your company. They're really excited about what you're going to say. I said, I know you might feel a little uncomfortable because you're not the best speaker. I tell you what are the 5 major questions that people normally ask you? So he tells me the questions. I said, would it be okay if you and I came out there together and then I did a fireside chat? It'll just be an interview. It's not you speaking directly to these individuals, which can be very intimidating. So obviously I didn't have time to ask anybody. I had to make executive decisions. And a lot of times that's also different is you don't want to offend or you want to stick to the script. But in certain times as an MC, you have to make decisions right there because there's no way that the event planner would have known that this guy is freaking out backstage. He's in the C-suite, but he's not a speaker, right? So obviously we got on stage and I did that. And I said to her afterwards, I say, listen, I had to ask for forgiveness. I didn't have time to ask you. I had to make a split decision. So that's also, and hopefully I answered your question. There's just so many things that go into this role that I really wish that people just wouldn't get bored. I call them boring board member Bob or introverted Ian because they don't understand what it takes to really kind of do this role. So those are just kind of like some of the things that, I feel like why MCs are so important to events and what makes their role very different, special, and unique from traditional speaking roles.
Yeah, one thing that occurs to me that could help speed up the process is to go to something like an improv school where you have all kinds of situations thrown at you and you have to figure out how you're going to respond, because that's a lot of what it is. I remember hearing the analogy that pilots, 90% of the time, everything is normal and calm. It's that 5 to 10% of the time when things go wrong that they've got to stay calm. And it's kind of what you're describing is, you've got to be ready. Those moments are going to come someday at some event. It may not happen at this event, but it's at the next. And you don't want the audience to know that something went wrong behind the scenes. You want them to feel like this is what was supposed to happen. And that takes a professional MC to create that experience so that nobody knows. I mean, sometimes you can't help but knowing, the video's not up there, the fire alarm went off, but in the case that you just described, the audience didn't need to know that he was panicking and the CEO wasn't there. It's like, no, this is who is supposed to speak, and we're going to adapt the way he's going to speak. So anything that you would add to that?
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. I think also too, it absolutely is about that. But I think it's also about when things happen that we all are super notice, it's not the time to say, and the AV is not working. I mean, when the AV starts working, we'll start this again. It's almost like, and because it's happened several times, like, and sometimes as a leader, I do very well of incorporating the chaos into the content. So what do I mean by incorporating the chaos into the content? So for example, sometimes, this has happened as a leader, you might have an agenda, you might have a plan, but the instrument or the tool that you were going to use might not work, like this microphone. So you have to be able to adapt in front of everyone as a leader, as I'm taking off the microphone, and be willing to use another instrument to get the point across. So I might be literally taking off a lav and getting a handheld, and the audience is going crazy because in real time it's happening, but I'm not freaking out. I'm using it as a teaching demonstration moment. Like, listen, the show must go on, and how you thought you were going to deliver this information as a leader, as a speaker, as an entrepreneur might change up, but you still have to be versatile in how the message is conveyed. And I'm doing all of this on stage, which has happened to me numerous times.
It's happened to me, and I used to be a worship pastor, and so I've had guitar strings break on me. And after a while, you start to figure out, what are you going to do when the guitar string breaks, when the lav stops working, whatever it is. One analogy that I like to use when I think about MCs, I call brick and mortar. So the bricks are those 45-minute sessions that you've hired the speaker or recruited the speaker to give. The mortar is the MC that's pulling things together to build a wall. Another example I've heard is content weaving, like you're creating the thread. Many events don't think about the mortar in the brick and mortar, and so the wall falls apart. It crumbles. The bricks fall over as soon as some wind or something goes wrong. But if you've got a good MC, they know how to connect those things together so that it's beautiful, it's cohesive, it makes sense. And I think that's one case for why you need a professional, is because they know how to do that. Whereas if you grab Bob out of the boardroom and say, hey, can you go introduce this next speaker? They're going to do that, but it's going to feel very much like, here we go. Now here's the next thing. Now here's the next thing. Would you add anything to that?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And that's the biggest kind of fight that I do have sometimes. But I told myself, Phil, I'm not even fighting that fight anymore. I don't want to work with meeting and event planners who I have to convince them twice. I don't want to have to convince them that boring board member Bob or introverted Ian is not the right person to MC their event, that they have to go external. And then on top of that, I have to convince them, shift their mindset, why they need a professional. And then I still have to convince them to hire me. So what I'm doing now is what I call MC education, right? So in addition to, going after certain opportunities, I am educating event planners and executives on the importance of the role through my social media. But I also love to work with people who are like, you know what? We need an MC. That's not even the question. It's just what type of MC would be best for our conference, for our association. So that way, I am working, attracting, partnering with planners who already understand the value of it, and I don't have to convince them, versus it's a hard nut to crack if I'm trying to explain to you why this internal person isn't the best person, versus there are a whole slew of people who understand, who appreciate, who value the MC role, who knows that we are the glue that holds the event together. They're just trying to figure out which one, not if we need one.
Yep. I think you make a great case. Now, the audience listening to this show, many of them are doing their very first show. So I do want you to spend a minute giving the case for why, from the get-go, it would be smart to hire an MC or bring a professional in instead of doing it yourself. Because I know a lot of business owners would say, well, I'm a good speaker. Everybody knows me. They appreciate me. Why would I want to spend money on a professional when I can do an adequate job? Help me build the case there.
It's the emotional and mental pull that they underestimate. When you are hosting your own event, what happens is you're on that stage. When you're off that stage, you have people pulling for your time and your attention. You got to go here, you got to go there. If there is a crisis, you know what I mean? And you are the leader or the host of the event, you're being pulled, which allows you mentally not to be on stage and connected to a crowd. As an MC, my goal, my obligation is attendee activation, right? So a lot of times as the planner, you're worried about the speakers, the sponsors, the vendors, the DJ, the food and beverage minimums, right? Who's taking care of the audience? Who is making sure that the audience feels psychologically safe? Who's making sure that there is a person that is tying together speaker 1 to speaker 3 or 4 or 5? Who is the person that can just be that face while you're putting out fires? So I don't even think I can do this myself. I think that it is a very underestimated role on how it pulls on you emotionally and mentally. And we look at the cost and we don't look at the ROI. But on the flip side of that, MCs like myself, we have to do a great job of verbalizing our value and showing why we're needed and necessary, because there's a stigma. There is an understanding that is false, that all we do is introduce people. So if you can understand how partnering, not hiring an MC, is advantageous to your conference, your association event, or your convention, or your meeting, then that is where a cohesive partnership can happen. And a lot of times the reality of what an MC does and what an MC really provides value, there's a disconnect there. So why would I pay somebody just to introduce people? Well, the MC has to understand, like, oh no, I'm not just introducing people. Here's what else I'm doing. I'm freeing up your mental and your physical. Because at the end of the day, when you're hosting your own event and you are the MC, oh my goodness, there's so many things that only you know. So that immediately when you go off stage, you're getting pulled in a bunch of different directions. So you look stressed, you look frazzled, you look frustrated, and that all comes out on your MC role. Or we see you fighting for your life, trying to hold it together when you know that they just told you that for whatever reason, you didn't order 100 plates. You only ordered 75. So 25 people are not going to eat, right? So instead of figuring that out, let your MC focus on that while you figure out how to make, 75 plates feed 100 people, because everything happens.
The first 7 years of social media marketing world, I was the main stage MC. And, the first couple of years it was fine, but over time we realized my attention was divided. And you're absolutely right. Being an MC is a draining job. And then being the producer, the host, whatever role you might have is also a draining job. And what you're doing to yourself is you're setting yourself up for failure if something goes wrong. So you might be fine coasting along if you've got the skills, but when something goes wrong and you're drained, you're not going to respond in the right way is my experience.
Or vice versa. Or I've seen very prestigious people in certain roles lose instant credibility because they're on stage, something goes wrong, they don't know how to handle it, and we see them just crumble. And that's a role they shouldn't have been in the first place, right? So it works fine if everything goes according to plan. But I've literally seen CEOs and senior level people like, I don't know what's happening. Why is my mic not working? I mean, and all of a sudden the audience is completely disengaged. They are like, we hear you. Why are you yelling? But it's just a very underestimated role. And I don't think necessarily it's harder. I think it's for a specialized individual. And I try to tell myself this is not a hard role when people don't understand it. The people who get it, they understand it. And that's the people that I want to work with. I want to take things off of your plate. If you are juggling 7 things, give me 5, you handle 2, we rock out, we partner together.
Yeah. And I don't think you're making the case that speakers can't be great MCs and great MCs can't be speakers. It's just there's different skills that you have to learn and focus on. Let me pivot the conversation a little bit. You as an MC, I want you to talk about the questions that you ask event producers that other MCs maybe don't ask or should be asking. What are the important questions that you ask to help you do your job better?
One of the questions that I ask is there anybody VIP dignitary in the room that needs to be honored, recognized? And if that is the case, I ask, okay, can I do that creatively? Not just, hey, we got Phil here. Everybody say hi to Phil. He's the president and CEO of such and such. So I think one of those things is, number one, asking any VIP sponsors, dignitaries, that you can give them some extra special attention beyond raise your hand, stand up, give me a thumbs up is one thing. Number 2, I think one of the main questions that I like to ask my planners and producers is, how do you want the audience to think? What do you want them to feel? And what do you want them to do after your event or your experience? Because sometimes it's like, I want them to feel energized. I want them to feel engaged. And I'm looking at the run of show and there's nothing in the run of show that speaks to that. So it's just like, okay, how can we add in some audience activation activities? How can we add in some movement? Oh, we want them to move. Can we incorporate a movement challenge? Can we incorporate some gamification? So I think that beyond the how many people were in the room, who's a first-time visitor, who's been there, like asking questions that allow you to shine in your MC superpower, right? So I think that's a big question. How do you want them to think? What do you want them to feel? And then what do you want them to do? So now I can be that seeder. I think another thing too is, especially if I do enrollment events or membership events, meaning that if I'm doing an event and at the end of the experience, the planner, the host wants people to join their community, or they want them to become a member of their association, or they want them to enroll into their high ticket coaching program or mastermind, is to ask certain questions around that so I can plant the seed. So when I am done emceeing, that audience takes the next logical step that the planner or the host wants them to. So a lot of times it's like, I want them to become a member, but they're not nurtured to become a member of your organization. It's just introductions and sponsors, but there's no continuous thread, theme, or pockets of inspiration and motivation that will lead them from this particular experience to membership into their organization. So it's just about asking questions to figure out, like, what is your real goals of this beyond, I just want a great event, right? But here's, what do you want them to think? What do you want them to feel? What do you want them to do? I try to tap into the psychographics of the audience to give them an experience. So they rave, they return, they build relevant relationships, and then they refer other people to attend their events. And a lot of times conferences and associations are losing members and losing people because, to be honest with you, it's boring. Like, there's nothing different. There's nothing sexy. There's nothing special. There's nothing unique. All of the speakers are pretty much, I know what they're going to say. There's nothing that really engages them, especially with all five senses. And a great MC can tap in on that and bring that to life.
It sounds to me like you're having those conversations in advance. How many times do you advise, or what does that look like in terms of your preparation so that you can deliver on that?
I consider myself a partner. So one of the things that I love, if somebody hires me earlier on the process, it's usually not like that. I'm usually the last on the list to get hired. I have everything else. I have my speakers, I have my DJ, and it's like, oh shoot, who's the emceeing this? Let's get somebody. And that's where I come in. But I like to be on as many prep meetings as possible. I mean, some MCs are like, hey, you get 5 meetings with me, you only get 3 meetings with me, and that's it. But the more I can become embedded in your company culture, the better I can be on stage. One of the best, I would say, compliments is, how long have you been working with this company? How long have you been a member of this association? Because it's not a cutoff for me. It's not a hiring. It is a partnership. So if I am involved on some of your pre-planning calls and what you have going on, I can get a better vision, because sometimes people don't know what they want. They could tell me they want this, but when I start sitting in on meetings, I'm like, oh, no, you don't want that. You really want this. And I can be intentional about incorporating that into my stage time, because I am a very frequent face. I'm up and down. They begin to trust me. They look at me on what's happening next. I make sure I'm equipped. So if I'm off the stage, I'm still on, because they're asking me questions. So it's just really about integrating myself into that company culture. Unlike a speaker, I can't, and I will not show up the day of like, all right, what do you want me to say? No, it doesn't work like that.
Yeah, that is profound. I love that you're doing that. And I want to build on that, because my next question is, what can event producers do to set you up for success? Which obviously you've just described. One is hire me early and let me be part of the process. But what else can a producer do that's going to set you up for success?
Definitely hire me early, like you mentioned. Also, too, ask me questions, right? So again, it's a partnership. That's how I look at it. It's just like, hey, we want to do some creative things here, right? I've done so many different type of events, and right now people don't want to go to an event. They want an experience. So ask my opinion. What do you think we should do? Or I'm thinking about this, because a lot of times there's some things that I could fix or support if I'm hired early on in the process. So they'll say something like, we have all of our speakers. I wish it was more diverse. And I'm like, well, if you hired me earlier in the process, I know a bunch of different diverse speakers. I could have made some suggestions for your short list, right? So I would say hiring early on, using MCs to your ability, asking them, this is what we're thinking. Do you have any ideas or suggestions? Like, treat us like a member of the team. Ask us certain questions, and you'd be surprised, because we work so many different events. Something that you didn't even think about could really be a game changer within your event.
I want to add one more, and I'll let you respond, because you are a speaker, NSA speaker even. Treat MCs the same as you treat speakers. Right? Like, give them that level of authority in your promotion, in the way you talk about them. They're not subordinate.
That, yes, and yes again. And it's interesting, because in America, the United States is where the MC role is a second-class citizen. I have talked to other MCs in different countries, and the MC role is very highly coveted. It's very respected. But for whatever reason, in this role, especially because if we make it look so easy, people really do believe that Bob from accounting can really do this role. But I 100% agree. You know what I mean? It's almost like they want, I mean, compensation, visibility, all of that comes second. I'm like, you're paying someone for this fabulous hour, but you got a 3-day conference. Who is the glue that holds that event together? So I would say yes, respect, admire, partner, vet your MC the same way you honor, respect, and value the keynote speaking role.
And I'm just going to speak. If you're a speaker listening to this right now, treat that MC with respect also. I've seen this happen where speakers look down on the MC thinking they're second class, instead of these are people that can make this experience that I'm trying to deliver better. Like if they can take the energy, whether it's the really high down to the appropriate level or it's really low up to the appropriate level, they're doing that speaker a service. And if you disrespect them, they're probably not going to do it.
Oh, I've never had that issue before, thank goodness. But I'm so confident in my craft. Like I know that, this is part of my assignment. This is a part of me being obedient. This is a part of what I'm supposed to be doing. And I'm grateful that I've leaned into that. And I think because I'm so serious about my craft and how I show up and how I interact with speakers, 10 times out of 10, if you are a speaker and I'm introducing you, our first conversation will not be at the event. I'm asking for a speak and greet. Hi, my name is Quinn. I'll be introducing you at the event. Am I saying your name correctly? Is there anything, a fun fact? So I'm building rapport with the speaker before. So they're like, oh my gosh, I've never had an MC that was so professional. That's what I hear all the time. I was like, because your name is the sweetest sound to your ear. So I can completely disrespect you by saying your name wrong, or I can elevate you and honor you by having your name correct. So that's the small things. And that's why my job begins not the day of the event. It really does begin, sometimes months before. So it really kind of sometimes makes me get a little bit uneasy when people are like, what's your day rate? I'm like, I'm not working with you for 3 days. I'm working with you for 3 months. Do you not remember the 5 or 6 or 7 meetings that we had before your event? Do you not remember the walkthrough? The 3 days is a combination of me being embedded in your company culture and ensuring that your event is not just an event, but an epic experience. So when it comes to other speakers, as well as, event planners, I just hope that they understand that this role is not a nice to have. It's a necessity if you want a epic attendee experience. If you want to check off check boxes to say, I did an event, I met food and beverage minimums, I had sponsors, I had butts and seats, then I'm not the MC for you. I'm that type of MC that likes to rock people's world and blow people's minds, right? Like, oh my gosh, this was the best experience ever. This was so amazing. I'm coming back. And sometimes my name is included in that, and sometimes it's not. But we all know why they're coming back, because they had an experience. And that's what people want now. They just don't want to be lectured at, spoken to. They want to be able to interact with the content and the people and the entire experience of the convention, the show, or the meeting.
I might add, you want to create unforgettable experiences.
Absolutely. Yes. Unforgettable. Yes.
I had to put my plug in there. I'm going to ask you one last question, because you said something earlier about everyone's used to going to these boring events. It's the same old, same speakers, same experience. What do you do as an MC to start the event to signal this event's going to be different? What are some things that you do in that moment?
Hello, everyone. My name is Quinn Conyers, and I'm so eager and excited to be your epic MC. My pronouns are she and her, but I also answer to awesome and amazing. So if you see me floating around, please know I accept hugs, handshakes, and high fives. Now, just so you know, here is what's going to happen today. And then I begin to kind of set up the experience. So when I start emceeing, I have a opening that I do to instantly connect with the audience. So people know, and they've said to me, I knew this conference was going to be different just by your introduction. I knew it was going to be live. I knew it was going to be vibrant. So I think that's one of the things that I do very well, to let people know this is not your average rodeo. This is not your basic or boring or bland conference. If it is up to me, there will be some audience activations, meaning there's certain times where I might pull an audience up and include them into the conversation or the content. I might do different games to really highlight and activate some of the sponsors. I do a lot of content weaving. So again, I do recaps. So if a keynote speaker has some really, really good points, I recap that and I transition to the next person. But I think it's how I start. I don't start with a bunch of thank yous. I don't start with a bunch of, hi, I'm so happy to be here and I'm going to be your MC. The bathrooms are there. The bathrooms are there. I'll get to that. But I need you to embrace my energy, because I know that I am that 2 cups of coffee that you didn't know that you needed. And that has come with experience, that has come with time. So it's how I kick off the event. And that what I just did for you is normally how I kick off my event, to let them know, like, get you to laugh. I'm trying to get you to laugh. I want to take you, Phil, on an emotional roller coaster as an MC. Like, usually when I say my pronouns are she and her, but I also answer to awesome and amazing, someone from the crowd is like, yes, you are awesome and amazing. But throughout, when I'm off stage, you're saying, hey, awesome, hey, amazing, connection. We are relating to each other, right? My pronouns are she and her, which is really good because I'm using inclusive language, but I'm also letting you know that I'm fun. I do accept hugs, handshakes, and high fives. It sets the tone that this is not your boring, monotone meeting. This girl is going to set the stage on fire and bring every other speaker with her. That's the goal. Now, if you don't want someone high energy, and that's okay, some things it might not be a good fit. But interesting enough, Phil, I have found that a lot of what I call introverted industries love me. I'm like, okay, you do understand, like, I am like super high energy. They're like, no, we need you at this conference. Everybody else is like a 3, maybe a 3.5. Okay, Quinn, I'm being really honest. Everybody's probably a 2 at a speaking tone. We need someone that can pick up the energy so it's not a snooze fest. So I have been getting very comfortable and confident in my role and understanding why I'm so needed and so necessary.
There's 2 things you just said I want to highlight. One is you're helping the audience connect to you and you're activating them to connect to each other. And then the other thing that you said that's really important is you're not starting with housekeeping. You're delivering an experience from that first moment. Too many of us get up and say, okay, here are the things that you need to know. There's the bathroom. No, get them to the content as fast as you can. And I think that's really great that you highlighted that. I want to give you the last word and then we'll talk about where to find you. But is there any final word that you'd love to give?
Final word I would like to give is, I would say, intention. If you're planning an event, be intentional about producing an experience. If you're an MC and you would like to take your MC and hosting skills to not a different level, but a whole different dimension, is be intentional about that. And I believe that we can grow as individuals, as people, as humans, by being intentional about who we want, what we want to do with our lives, more importantly, how we want to serve. I believe speaking and MCing is an act of service. And I believe that part of my job is to leave a legacy with my language and change the world with my words. And I have the honor, the privilege, and the pleasure to do that every single time I step on a stage. But I am intentional about that stage time. And it really is about activating audiences and making sure that the speakers who are going to be speaking on stages have a platform that they can use to deliver their life-changing message as well. So intentionality.
I love that. Where do people find you, Quinn?
The best way to connect with me is on LinkedIn. I am on other platforms, but LinkedIn is where I check regularly. And LinkedIn is where I know people mean business. So if you want to connect with me, I am Quinn Conyers on all social platforms, but LinkedIn is where we can take a deeper dive into connecting.
And as you know, we finished the show with my signature sign off. So you've already given me one word, which is intentional, but I'd love 2 more words. And one of them at least needs to have an emotional element to it.
I would say luxury language. We said intention. And I will also say gratitude.
Love it. And of course, we're recording this in Thanksgiving week, so it's appropriate, but all year long, it's an appropriate word. All right, well, let's go to the signature sign. Thank you so much, Quinn, for being on the show. It's been a great conversation. I've learned from you. We've covered a lot of important things. I hope those of you who are planning events will take note. Find yourself a professional event MC like Quinn. She's available. She also knows a lot of MCs. If she's not available, you want to make sure you do that and take advantage and make your event experience all the better. Thank you, Quinn.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Event Innovator Show. Connect with Phil on philmershon.com and be sure to subscribe and never miss an episode.